escalation in the rhetoric that has been coming in from President Trump, who in fact has defended the use of the B-2 bomber strikes on Iran. And President Trump has claimed that the strikes targeted key nuclear sites and helped stop Iran's nuclear ambitions. And projecting the operations as a decisive success, he's asserted that the action averted a larger global threat, warning that parts of the Middle East and even Europe could have faced destruction if Iran's capabilities were not checked. The president has repeatedly justified military action as necessary for security, while also keeping the options open for further strikes on the table amid stalled diplomacy. That seems to be the concern that is now raised on part of President Trump.
Because we have to take a little journey down to a beautiful country known as Iran, and we have to make sure that they don't have a nuclear weapon. We stopped them with the B-2 bombers. If we didn't do that, we would have had a nuclear weapon. Israel would have been blown to pieces. The Middle East would have been blown to pieces. I think Europe would have been blown to pieces.
Mayank, again, the understanding of who really has an upper hand in this case. Both sides have been declaring a decisive victory. But as far as the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, because President Trump is of the opinion that the naval blockade will continue irrespective of the talks.
See, the maximum, I mean, let's understand this, and we can easily agree to that aspect that Iran would have, received the maximum blow, because it was jointly between US and Israel that they had been using their hardcore powers, military powers, to attack Iran. But then also we have to understand that Iran has been able to withstand those attacks and is able to bring the war, which was supposed to be for only lasting for a few days, has brought it to this level that they are mitigating at equal front, and they are able to withstand that pressure also. It's commendable. Let us understand that from that perspective, because we had been talking, US had been talking that the war will be finished quickly, and they are now talking that, they are sticking to the point that Strait of Hormuz should be opened with unconditionally, and Iran should be accepting their offers, which it is not doing actually. So it has got stuck in such a way that the world is going to face the problems, and it is already facing it. That's what we were talking, that cost of living has to rise in the coming days further. Yeah. When it has already started showing the pressures all over the globe. So this is how the things are happening. But we don't see, for Iran, it is a matter of do or die, and this is how they had been projecting. So we have to understand the kind of offers, because details have not yet come out.
Well, because
why am I saying it is
that both sides are not ready for a prolonged conflict, because in the end, if they want to pressurize the world also in reacting, because for how long will the countries bear the burden of rising costs? Inflation is something that continues to remain as a threat. But, in the long term, it is not either good for President Trump and his administration, neither it is good for Iran to sustain a prolonged conflict. Let's in the meantime also talk about what President Trump has been reiterating. He has continued to maintain that Iran has been decimated. They have no navy, they have no air force, claiming that there is no anti-aircraft, no radar. And Iran also has no leaders, according to President Trump, as far as in the past as well, that he's made such kind of statements, where he continues to say that on part of this conflict where the United States has been leading with the strikes there with Israel, well, America has all the cards. Again, this is a statement being repeated by President Trump.
They're getting decimated. They have no navy. They have no air force. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. They have no radar. They have no leaders. Their leaders are all gone.
Well, here's another statement that he's often repeated is how unhappy he is with the NATO allies, saying that he received zero help from them, and saying that the lack of support is something that President Trump has highlighted, saying that NATO's commitment is something that needs to be questioned, as the US has spent trillions of dollars on it, and NATO, however, did not help, saying that we spent trillions of dollars and we got no help from the NATO allies. As far as in the past as well, President Trump has labeled NATO to be a paper tiger, a coward, as far as the countries there are concerned, because outrightly, even today, they have snubbed President Trump as far as their, extending support to this conflict is something that they also do not want to be a part of it directly or even indirectly. Well, let's listen in to what President Trump has said on NATO.
And we got no help from NATO. We got no help, zero from NATO. You know, we spent trillions of dollars on NATO. We got no help. We didn't need it, but we got none.
Well, Mayank, this is not coming in as a brainer from President Trump. Time and again, he continues to repeat his statements. Of course, he's been talking about the 8 conflicts that he has solved in the past while being in office this year. But however, this is something that he has been also talking and reiterating about how unhappy he is with NATO.
Absolutely, and we have to wait and watch. Once all this gets over, in what form the NATO will emerge. That's also a moot point actually, which has started coming to the minds of the people. They had been time and again wanting that it is the NATO allies which should come in, join the war in such a way that they are supporting in opening Strait of Hormuz. This is what we are finding since last, so many days, and which has not taken place. Primarily the larger nations, which include Germany, France, even Italy, they had been, or even UK, they did not ever buzz from their point that they won't be joining the war directly. This has been a clear case as far as these nations are concerned. So we have to wait and watch in what form the NATO will emerge post this conflict is over and some kind of a mitigation is successful. That's we have to wait and watch.
All right. Wait and watch seems to be the case, but President Trump not being happy with the deal. What are we now looking at? Is there are certain reports from within Iran as far as its leadership is also concerned, Mayank. There were certain reports suggesting that, they're not very happy with the way Araghchi has been conducting himself and maybe going against the line as far as the IRGC is also concerned. Or is it the kind of support that IRGC seems to be extending to Araghchi, which President Pezeshkian and the Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf do not seem to be on the same page? But when we talk about Pentagon, that seems to be also planning to withdraw about 5,000 American troops from Germany. Now, this seems to be another sense of pressure tactics that seems being to build, because what has now been said that this move is being characterized as a signal of President Trump's discontent with the level of assistance that the European allies have offered to the US, and especially when it comes to the current conflict. So President Trump, who has publicly criticized the German Chancellor as well and the leaders of the other NATO members on not directly getting involved. Well, Mayank, this has now been seen as far as US military campaign against Iran. There is already a massive presence in Germany that goes back as the aftermath of World War II and Cold War as well. And it is being said that there are more than 36,000 active duty troops that has been assigned to its bases. So what happens if those troops move out?
See, the most important point is actually it was the bases in the Middle East which were hit by Iran in such a way that it pressurizes US. That's what the whole plan was during this entire campaign, which took place for almost 42 days. So from going by that, there's a concept called rest and recuperation. If these troops have been moved out or they have not been utilized that way, there is a process of churning over, or there's a process of one set of troops replacing the other set of troops. So maybe the requirement is from that perspective also, because in terms of hardcore military weaponry, equipments and systems were moved from Asia also. Those were the reports. So it's kind of a reorganization, or reorbiting. That's the technical term actually. This is called order of battle is changed in such a way that it favors a nation. That's how the technical term is actually. So this is what exactly you can see from that perspective. But as I have said, wait and watch for the format in which NATO will emerge later on. Because as of now, this is just can be seen from that perspective. One important point on IRGC is that it has been a grooming ground for an entire leadership, even if judiciary, parliament or any civil sphere in Iran is concerned, right from Mustafa Khamenei, he was IRGC commander, Basij battalion he commanded. Yeah. Then you come to speaker, he has been from the IRGC. So you cannot forego, or you cannot preclude these important informations when you talk of leadership. Ultimately, it has not disintegrated and they are able to put across their point in a joint manner. That's the success of Iran in one way or the other, or maybe IRGC, because we don't know much from there. So having said that, even if there's a difference, that we need to understand from that perspective. Will they disintegrate? They have not yet disintegrated in terms of leadership and carrying out the campaign. So
but
these are the very
unclear, Mayank, as to who is actually calling the shots. I mean, is this there a heavy influence of the IRGC, or are we looking at, as far as the leadership who has been going for these diplomatic talks either to Islamabad or other countries as well? So it is still unclear who exactly is calling the shots, because we've seen that despite the ceasefire, there have been rounds of firing that has been reported in the Strait of Hormuz by the IRGC. And this is something which President Trump time and again has raised as to, first, Iran needs to fix who is the person who is making all of the decisions. We just have to leave it at that, Mayank, for the moment. Thank you very much for joining in. Heading into a very short break. You're watching Times Now.